the thing about Donald Trump is that while he is obviously a fascist authoritarian who wants to utterly destroy our constitutional republic and rule as an absolute dictator, he is at the same time a blithering idiot. And so he often says things that are scary coming from a president of the United States, but are also breathtakingly stupid. And so last night, or early this morning, 12:35 a.m., he posted on Truth Social something that is both scarily authoritarian and also breathtakingly stupid. And you may have heard of this by now, but he has declared that the pardons that President Biden had issued for members of the January 6th Select Committee, that he's declared that those are null and void. And which is absurd as a legal matter on its face. But I do want to address it because you may have justifiable questions. Because you might be thinking, okay, yeah, I see, to me it sounds like it would be stupid and not legal, but so what? When does the law ever matter to Donald Trump? He doesn't care about the law. He doesn't care about the Constitution. He doesn't even abide by court orders. So who's to stop him from declaring these pardons null and void? Who's to stop him from prosecuting these people? So that's why I want to deal with this, because given the times in which we live, it's a legit question. So let's begin by taking a look at what this moron actually wrote. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but let's take a look at the operative part. Let me put it on the screen here. So here's what this idiot wrote. He wrote, "The pardons that Sleepy Joe Biden gave the Unselect Committee of Political Thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect because of the fact that they were done by auto pen." So that is his legal justification, that they were done by auto pen, therefore he can declare them null and void. Now, first of all, I don't know if they were done by auto pen or not, but for purposes of this discussion, let's assume that these pardons were signed by auto pen. Does that give Donald Trump the authority to declare them null and void? No. And before I explain why, I want to point out the fact how absurd it is for Donald Trump in this post to, on the one hand, say that anything done by auto pen can be declared null and void because it was done by auto pen and therefore I guess not official. But anything he posts at 2:30 a.m. while he's hopped up on Diet Cokes and binge watching reruns of Fox News, anything he puts at Truth Social, that's official. Auto pen, not official. Rage post on Truth Social, official. I mean, how ridiculous is that? But beyond that, let's talk about this issue of the auto pen. If something is signed by auto pen, does that make it not official and that Donald Trump can declare it null and void? The answer to that is no. And to arrive at that conclusion, why don't we take a look at the Constitution? Because it's the Constitution that gives the president the power of the pardon. So what is the requirement? Well, there is no requirement. There is no requirement that a pardon even be signed by a president. And why is that? Is not a president required to sign a pardon to make it valid? Well, no. There is no requirement in the Constitution, and the Constitution is what gives the president the power to pardon people. There's no requirement in the Constitution that a pardon be physically signed by a president in order to be valid. In fact, it doesn't require the pardon to be signed at all. I'll go you one further. It doesn't even require that the pardon be in writing. Although it'd be a good idea if it were in writing, but it's not required. So why don't we take a look at the exact language of the Constitution, and let's go from there. So this is Article 2, Section 2, laying out the powers of the president. And it says, he shall have power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. Period. Do you hear anything in that? A requirement that a president physically sign a pardon? Do you hear in that any requirement that it be signed at all or even be in writing? No. Now, we don't have to deal with the writing part because in this case, these pardons are in writing. The only issue is if they were signed by auto pen, whether or not that makes them invalid. Again, there's no requirement that a president sign at all or physically sign a pardon. And think about this. What if a president had both his hands smashed and couldn't sign anything? Would he be unable to issue pardons? Or how about this? What if a president were paralyzed from the neck down? He can't sign shit, right? Does that mean that he can never pardon anyone? Or is a president who's paralyzed from the neck down, is he or she disqualified from being president because they don't have the use of their arms and legs? No. You can be paralyzed and be president. But if you're paralyzed and president, does that mean you can't actually do anything because you can't sign anything? No. Again, there is no requirement that the pardon be signed or be physically signed by a president. So a pardon can be signed. Again, it doesn't have to even be signed, but if it's going to be signed, it can be signed by an auto pen. It can be signed at the direction of the president, signed by a staffer at the president's direction. The question is, did the president intend for this to be a pardon? And by the way, if this were ever litigated, and I don't think it ever would be, not to this extent, but I will get to what would happen if Trump tried to prosecute people. But if this issue of the auto pen were litigated, this would be resolved real easy. The defense could call President Biden in as a witness and ask him, did you issue this pardon? Did you intend for this auto pen to be your signature? Was this signed by auto pen at your direction, and did you intend for this pardon to be a pardon of these people? That's it. Case closed. All right, so the auto pen thing is a non-issue. But there is a serious question of, well, what if Donald Trump just ignores all this? He doesn't care about the Constitution, doesn't care about the law. What if he just goes ahead and prosecutes these people? Well, the truth is, there is nothing that can stop a president from investigating or indicting these people. And the truth is, it's very easy to get a grand jury to indict someone. The grand jury, there's no judge. It's fully controlled by the prosecutor. There don't even have to be any witnesses. The grand jury only sees or hears evidence that the prosecutor wants them to. There's no right for the defense to offer any evidence. There's no right for the defense to even be there or have any idea what's going on inside there. And in terms of the law is only given and explained to them by the prosecutor. So a prosecutor can get them to do whatever they want. So let's assume that this tyrant really wants his vengeance and orders his DOJ to investigate and indict members of the January 6th committee who were the subject of these pardons. Well, what would happen is they'd be indicted, and then those indictments would be filed with a court. And once that happens, a judge is now in control. And the defense has a right to participate. And so what would happen is the defense would immediately file a motion to dismiss based on the pardons. And the cases would be immediately dismissed. There is no chance that any judge anywhere in this country, except for maybe Aileen Cannon, would recognize Donald Trump's revocation of these pardons or rule that, because they were signed by auto pen, that they have no force and effect. No judge anywhere in the country, and I know many of you think, well, this Supreme Court, Donald Trump controls this Supreme Court. This Supreme Court is really bad, but people grossly exaggerate the degree to which Donald Trump controls the Supreme Court. People are going to be very surprised by the number of cases that the Supreme Court rules against Donald Trump. But this Supreme Court is not going to, give any weight to Trump's revocation of these pardons, whether by Truth Social post or even if Trump follows up with an official executive order that he signs. It's just absurd. Now, okay, so you'd have the motion to dismiss, but beyond that, and this is one of the reasons why I opposed these pardons in the first place, is that, first of all, there's no crime. They committed no crime in investigating Donald Trump and January 6th. There's no crime. But beyond that, members of Congress actually have constitutional immunity from prosecution for doing their jobs. It's called the speech or debate clause. Now, the text of the Constitution, the text of the speech or debate clause, only really applies to what things that they say in Congress. But the courts have expanded that to mean really anything that members of Congress do in performance of their job. So all case law would cover everything that these people did in taking part in the January 6th committee. So they already have immunity on top of the fact that there is no crimes that were committed. So anyway, nothing is going to happen with this. I mean, maybe he tries to prosecute these people, but it will go nowhere. If he gets an indictment, they would be quickly dismissed, either on the basis of the pardons, both on the basis of the pardons, because this motion to dismiss filed by the lawyers would be on the basis of the pardons and immunity because of the speech or debate clause. And for both of those reasons, these indictments would be immediately dismissed. And by the way, any prosecutors who had anything to do with these indictments would almost certainly be disciplined by their respective state bars and hopefully, as they should be, disbarred and lose their jobs as a result of this. This is not even a close call. There is no legit legal issue here. They can argue whatever they want, but it's bogus. It's ridiculous. I mean, some of these arguments that this administration is making are so on their face absurd that no court will give them any weight whatsoever. And really, the lawyers who are pushing these things should be disbarred. I'll give you another example, the whole birthright citizenship thing. I mean, these lawyers, for the birthright citizenship and for these, if they tried to prosecute members of Congress, they should be disbarred not just for being corrupt and doing these things, but for rank incompetence. Okay, the reason why you have to pass a bar exam and you have to have graduated from an accredited law school is because they have to make sure that you are minimally competent to practice law. If you're so fucking stupid that despite the fact that a pardon was issued and that these people were members of Congress and have a constitutional immunity from prosecution, if you go forward with indictments, you are so fucking incompetent as a lawyer that you shouldn't have a license. And you should be, disbarred for that reason alone. Anyway, this whole thing is ridiculous, as are most of these things, but they are born of this man's authoritarianism and his need for vengeance and to hurt the people who he thinks have wronged him. But anyway, that's what I think you need to know about it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.